Hi, everybody. I'm Caitlin. I'm one of the youth services librarians at Skokie Public Library, and I'm here tonight with my brilliant friend Lori, one of Skokie Public Library's finest community engagement librarians, who also works at the kids' desk. One thing that Lori and I have in common is that we both love learning and we both love school. We have spent a lot of time thinking and talking about it. Me, because I have two kids who go to school here in Skokie, and Lori, because the biggest part of her job is working directly with our local schools as a school services librarian. For those of us who get excited about school, and actually there are a lot of us who work in the library who get excited about school, but for those of us who are excited about it, this is a particularly thrilling time of the year.
It's always pretty exciting in the kids' room.
That is true, but this time of the year is when we start hearing from grown-ups who are looking for books to help their kids get ready for school.
Going to school for the first time can be exciting or scary, and there are often a lot of big feelings about it, both from the kid and the caregiver.
Yeah, I know that I had really big feelings on both of my kids' first days of school. I have two books that really highlight those big feelings. The first book that I have is The Day You Begin. It is written by Jacqueline Woodson with truly lovely pictures by Rafael Lopez. I love this book in every way, but I think that my favorite is the way that the pictures work with the words to convey all those feelings. They convey nervousness, hope, uncertainty, enthusiasm, and ultimately the joy of belonging. It just perfectly encapsulates what it's like to be new and to feel different. It's a great read for bigger kids who are moving to a new school or town, but it also works for brand new kindergartners. And the next book that I brought also showcases those big feelings about going to school for the first time, and some of them might surprise you. So this book is First Day Critter Jitters. It's by Jory John. It's illustrated by Liz Climo. From a snake who worries about how it will carry a backpack to a sloth who worries that it won't make it to school on time, this book does a great job exploring anxious feelings and humorously calming fears by pointing out that it's normal to feel nervous. We all do, including teachers. And there are lots of ways to help each other through it.
There are definitely all kinds of normal feelings about going back to school. And one of my favorite things about books is that you can find a character or two who your child and you can relate to. Reading these types of books aren't supposed to be a cure for the feelings, but they definitely can help the reader understand that they aren't the only one who feels that way. The book We Don't Eat Our Classmates by Ryan T. Higgins is an excellent example of a picture book that takes a humorous approach to a new school year. Penelope, the main character, is a fantastic little T-Rex dinosaur who is extremely nervous about the beginning of her first day of school. She becomes even more concerned when she finds out that all of her classmates are children, not little dinosaurs. Things start out a little rocky, but once she realizes that she should treat her classmates the way she would like to be treated, friendship replaces fear and the school year takes a turn for the better.
So I love this book. And I love the drool on the speaker. It gives you sort of a clue about what's going to happen. We've covered kids feeling nervous, and we talked a little bit about teachers maybe feeling anxious, but what about the school?
Do you mean the building?
That's exactly what I mean. The next book that I have is School's First Day of School. It's written by Adam Rex with pictures by one of my all-time favorite illustrators, Christian Robinson. It's a new school year, and everyone is getting ready, including the brand new Frederick Douglass Elementary School building. It doesn't know what to expect, and overhearing comments like, "I don't like school," isn't making it feel better. As the day goes on and the school experiences the brightness and the bustle, including a kid laughing so hard, you can see it right here in the picture. He tells a joke, he laughs so hard that milk comes out of his nose. I know, it's super gross. The building thinks it's gross too. It all comes together. So I love the whole premise of this book, and it gave me a new way to think about buildings and spaces. Our library, in fact, is only about a year and a half into its new renovation. I wonder how it felt when all of the people started coming back in.
My guess would be that it mostly felt proud. One of the things that Caitlin and I have the pleasure of doing together is visiting school buildings so that we can meet the students where they are instead of always waiting for them to visit us. The work I do could not be done without the help of other library staff. And together we do exciting things like hosting lunchtime book conversations for middle schoolers, sharing what we know and love about books through book talks, and bringing authors to meet kids and answer their intriguing questions about writing. Seeing teachers, students, school librarians, and of course, all of the different buildings is very different from doing all of our work inside the main library. It's one of the parts of my job that I really love.
Lori, did you always love school and teachers?
Absolutely. Even when I was very young, whenever anyone asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I didn't even have to think about the answer. I knew I wanted to be a teacher. I probably didn't know back then, but I suspect it was partially because I enjoyed knowing that I had things to do all day. I appreciate unstructured time and time to myself much more now that I'm a little bit older. I also think learning is fun. Not every topic is equally fun, but just the idea that if something inspires me, I can find out and talk to other people about it, it's exciting. That's why my first degree from college was to become a teacher, and my second, my master's, was in librarianship. One of my all-time favorite picture books is about a teacher. Miss Nelson is Missing was published the year that I was in kindergarten. And even when I was in college studying to become a teacher, memories of Miss Nelson and Miss Viola Swamp made me think that I might know a little more about classroom management than the other students who hadn't read that beloved book. Thankfully, I never experienced kids in a classroom behaving like the ones in room 207, spitballs flying, paper planes whizzing, and not settling down when asked. We were the chair pushing in generation. We did what we were told when we were told to do it. I don't think that these types of behaviors are particularly funny, but I do adore the teacher's creative solution for fixing them.
So, like you, I so much of what you just said totally resonated with me. I also love learning. I still like it, but I was really distracted in elementary school. Like a lot of kids, if I wasn't interested in the subject, it was a real chore. I also never threw balls or paper airplanes, but there was a kid in my class who threw a pencil up in the air and got it stuck in the ceiling. And that was really exciting and also a great lesson about gravity and physics.
Mhm.
I think it's important while we're talking about this to remember that learning looks different for everybody. Maybe spelling isn't your favorite subject, but you are an excellent creative thinker and problem solver. Or maybe it's hard to pay attention to math facts, but you're able to hypnotize your mean principal and turn him into a sympathetic, super strong, undergarments wearing superhero who saves the world again and again. Yes, I am talking about the superhero who needs no introduction, the one, the only Captain Underpants, tra la la. This is a book and series that is so popular that it really does not need my endorsement, but I would like to take a minute and sing the praises of the author, Dave Pilkey. Mr. Pilkey was diagnosed with extreme hyperactivity, what is now known as ADHD, and dyslexia when he was very young, which made school a huge challenge for him. Often sent into the hallway for disruptive behavior, he felt isolated and worried that other kids would look down on him for his struggles with reading and writing. So instead, he focused on drawing and storytelling, which eventually led to brilliant books like Captain Underpants or Ricky Ricotta, Dog Man, and so many more. So even though Captain Underpants is silly through and through, these books are an homage to brilliant, creative kids who think outside the box like he was. George and Harold remind us that there are lots of ways to solve a problem, and also that it is really important to maintain a strong relationship with your school administrators. Right? You never know.
Absolutely. Never hurts to have them on your side.
I agree. On a non challenging note, you know what I always looked forward to in school?
What's that?
Show and tell. I loved thinking about what to bring when I was little. Like it felt very important. It's like a little glimpse into what kids value. Do you remember bringing anything to school for show and tell?
I do. There was this one time when I brought our new family pet, a Dachshund dog, to school in my backpack. He escaped. And when I tried to find him, I somehow turned into a dachshund too.
Lori, what?
I'm just kidding, Caitlin. Our only family pet really was a dachshund dog. There he is, Duffy.
Aw, Duffy.
But the show and tell story is not my own. It comes from the book David Dixon's Day as a Dachshund. David is a second grader in Mrs. Norrell's class. And without giving away too much, let me just say that her classroom is magical. This is the second book of the Class Critters series. And I think easy fiction readers who like animal, friendship, humorous, or school stories will enjoy this one a lot. For readers who also like some facts with their fiction, there are 10 of them about dachshunds at the end of this story.
I think I like all those things. I like animals and friendship and humorous stories and school stories and also facts with my fiction. I think I'm going to have to check that one out. You're not going to believe this, Lori, but I also have a dogs at school story. It's not a personal one, though. One year I did bring my hamster in for show and tell, but I did not turn into a hamster. When I was a kid, I sort of thought that the world stopped when I was at school, or at least the parts of the world that involved me. This book that I brought reminds us that when we leave the house in the morning, the people and pets that we leave behind still think about us, maybe a little bit too much. So this book is Two Dogs in a Trench Coat Go to School. It is by Julie Falatko and illustrated by Colin Jack. In this book, Stuart's two dogs, Sassy and Waldo, are, let's just say, concerned when Stuart escapes from home every day and is forced to go to what they can only imagine is a terrible place where he does nothing all day long. Being the wonderful companions that they are, they decide that they have to rescue him, and obviously they have to go in disguise, so they borrow a trench coat and become Salty, an admittedly strange-looking kid from Liver, Ohio. This book is really funny, and it also makes a great read aloud. It's a perfect choice for 2nd through 4th graders, or really anybody who loves a good squirrel joke, or who wants to experience school through the eyes of a dog.
That is a great book. It's interesting that many children's authors write about animals going to school.
I noticed that too.
Yeah, isn't it strange? Have you read Click, Clack, Quack to School by Doreen Cronin and Betsy Lewin?
No.
Unlike the other books we've talked about, in this one, the farm animals are actually invited to be there. My grandparents owned a farm in Hillsboro, Wisconsin when I was a kid, which may be why I love this series so much. I think they were both a little bit like Farmer Brown. They planned well in advance and they expected rules to be followed. To the best of my recollection, we never received an invitation to bring any of the animals to a farm day lunch at my school. But I also didn't attend the Dinkelmeyer Elementary School either. What do you think happens when the animals learn the rules and are asked to not behave like their normal selves? How do you think their visit goes? You'll have to read to find out.
I have a question. It's a logistics question. How did the animals get to Dinkelmeyer Elementary?
Well, in the back of Farmer Brown's pickup truck, of course, except Duck, who gets to ride in the passenger side of the front seat.
They all look like they're having a pretty good time in there.
Except that rooster. He looks a little jealous of Duck.
He does. A little concerned.
And the cow might not be quite as steady on his feet as one might hope.
Maybe that's the problem. They're like, what's this guy doing? I asked that question because I think that getting to school is part of the overall experience of education, and there are lots of different ways to do it. But perhaps the most iconic and seminal is that big yellow superstar. I know my kids couldn't wait to ride the bus for the first time. I'm now realizing that there's obviously something about me that really cares about the way that inanimate objects feel about things. Because first I talked about the school building, and now I'm going to talk about a school bus. I have I'm Your Bus. It is written by Marilyn Singer with pictures by Evan Palengi. The bus, in perfect rhyming cadence, as you might expect all buses talk,
Oh, for sure,
describes its day transporting children to and from school. So this is a wonderful read aloud, and it was a major favorite in our house before my son started school for the first time. I think I read it 300 times a day. I also looked forward to my first time riding the school bus, and I've enjoyed the few times I've gotten to ride it as an adult. How about you, Lori? How did you get to school?
My family lived in Roselle, one of the western suburbs of Illinois, when I was in elementary school. So my sisters and I walked from our house to school. A little bit later, when I was in sixth grade, we lived in a high rise apartment building in Chicago. That's the only year I took a school bus.
Huh.
A year later, we moved to Evanston, and my older sister and I took public transportation, but my younger sister walked since she went to a different school that was only a block away from our house. Fun fact, one of my favorite memories was that when we were getting along with each other, my older sister and I would sometimes combine our bus fare money and use it to buy a bag of French fries, like a paper bag. Then we would walk home together eating them. It was quite a walk. Unfortunately, our parents learned about bus tokens during that year. And when we had those, we couldn't trade them for French fries.
Bummer.
I know. Speaking of fun facts, here's another great back to school or really anytime book that has tons of them. Our World in Numbers, an encyclopedia of fantastic facts by Clive Gifford, has amazing information and incredible pictures about lots of things ranging from space to nature, people and culture to science and technology, and much more. Check out this page about wheeled vehicles. It's so cool. Can you even imagine a stretch limousine that is 100 feet long? An entirely different kind of unbelievable is about this world's first speeding ticket. It was issued in 1896 to a guy in Britain for driving only 8 miles per hour.
I feel like you could maybe run faster than that.
Oh, you definitely could run faster than that.
Maybe they ran to give him the ticket. Slow down, sir. Fun fact about me, I love fun facts. Another one is that I was homeschooled until I was 8. It was really a positive experience for me, although sometimes it was a little bit lonely. But like we discussed a little earlier, there's not just one way to learn, and there's not just one way to get to school. Like I think you had about 14 different ways to get to school. And also, there's not just one way to go to school. So the book that I have is This Is My Home, This Is My School. It's written and illustrated by Jonathan Bean. In this semi-autobiographical picture book, we follow a young boy who learns at home. We get to meet his teachers, who are his parents. We get to see his classroom, which, like, I think you can see it's his living room. There's his classmates, who are his siblings. And we get to see all the ways that learning at home is different and the same as going to regular school. I really like this book. It reminded me of reading, cooking, and sewing, hiking, and exploring with my parents, all learning, just different. During that time, I thought a lot about what it must be like to go to a real school. My perceptions about what it was probably like were shaped by visiting various historical reenactment sites where kids would wear dunce caps when they were naughty, or they would keep their noses in a circle on the chalkboard. And they would listen. I would listen to stories about cranky teachers who would rap knuckles with rulers. I could not wait to go to a school like that. It all sounded incredibly dramatic. In the end, when I finally did go to a public school, it turns out that it wasn't like any of that. My teachers were super sweet and I loved them, and there were not any rulers for wrapping, maybe just rulers for measuring, and there were no dunce caps anywhere to be found. The most difficult thing that I had to deal with was figuring out how to make friends with other kids my age who had been in school together since kindergarten. Being the new kid is really hard.
Definitely. Change isn't easy for lots of people, especially kids. In Catalina Incognito, The New Friend Fix by Jennifer Torres, that's a main part of the plot. Catalina and her best friend Pablo are excited to be the first third graders to meet the new student they heard about over the summer. Esme is quite shy, and her cousin Yasmin is not only protective of her, but also seems angry with Catalina and Pablo. There's a really interesting Spanish saying that Catalina's tia abuela says to her: caras vemos, corazones no sabemos, which means faces we can see, but hearts we do not know. It's good to remember to not be too quick to judge how someone else is feeling, because you don't really know, especially when you don't know the person very well. And when people are experiencing many feelings all at the same time, it's even more complicated.
That's a really good point. It's really useful to keep in mind. The past few years have really hit home how different school can be. I've personally had a lot of different school experiences, but nothing could have prepared me for my kids going to Zoom school from our living room during the pandemic. It just goes to show that there are probably a zillion different ways to go to school. And in fact, a lot of them are in this book, School Days Around the World by Marguerite Roers. This informational picture book shows what school is like for kids all over the world. And here you can see the faces of all the kids that are mentioned in this book. From riding a family's scooter to school in the Pacific Islands to a forest school in Denmark, you can explore how kids learn in ways that are both different and similar. I thought this book was really interesting. And speaking of classroom experiences, the last book that I have is Mr. Wolf's Class. It's written by Erin Nels Steinke, and it's a perfect encapsulation of a fourth grade classroom, in case you've ever visited one or in case you remember what it was like to be in your own fourth grade classroom. This sweet, funny graphic novel covers so much of what we have talked about in this chat. It talks about first day jitters. Mr. Wolf is brand new and the rest of the kids are coming back to school. It talks about making friends and working together and sometimes not working together, and even show and tell. I really like this book. It feels very honest and real to me in its portrayal of kids this age and all of their wonderful, silly chaos. The pictures are bright and engaging, and kids of all ages, but probably especially second through fourth graders, will really be able to see themselves here.
I have one more book to share also. Dear Student by Ellie Swartz. Its main character, Autumn, is starting middle school amidst a bunch of changes. Perhaps the biggest is that her dad has joined the Peace Corps 6 postcards ago and asked her to get involved in at least one thing at school this year that could make a difference. She could seriously use some advice. Or maybe, just maybe, her one thing could be joining the school newspaper to be the anonymous columnist who responds to other students' requests for advice. I enjoy the way the letters and answers are interspersed among the text, and also appreciate that it made me think about how all questions don't have clear-cut answers, and sometimes that can be okay.
And with that, we have reached the end of our list. It is a really good one. You can find all of these books and so many more in the kids' room at Skokie Library. In fact, going to school is such an important topic that it has its very own section in the picture books. You can ask at the kids' desk and we'll show you right where it is. And finally, if you can't find what you need or you don't know what you need, we are here for you. In case you can't tell, Lori and I, along with the rest of the team that works in the Youth Services Department, love talking about books. Come see us in person or fill out a Bookmatch request and we'll put together a personalized list and email it to you. We offer a Bookmatch for grown-ups, teens, and kids aged kindergarten and up. You can find a link in our chat or on our website at skokielibrary.info. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. Come see us at the library or join us here next month for more exciting book conversations.